Shalom Havarim, welcome friends. I hope I didn't give you whiplash with the changing of the slides and the opener and everything. Just still trying to get used to how technology works. It's meant to be our friend, but sometimes it's our enemy. Okay, so welcome to our midweek Midrash, and I just wanted to open with a few announcements. We've got a few things that are available to you. As you know, this is October, and we know what that means. Evil is on the rise, as if you didn't know by watching the news. But there's a lot behind it. The enemy is behind it. And I wanted to let you know that we've got items for you. These are free that you can download and use. So for the 31st, we've got this poster here, and as you can see, it's got the jack-o'-lantern. Nothing wrong with pumpkins, but the jack-o'-lantern's got a whole different thing behind it. And it's got a circle and a slash through it with Ephesians 5:11 and 1 Thessalonians 5:22 written on there. And it clearly says we do not celebrate Halloween. And this is for you to download. You can download it from our website at neveshalomoasis.org. And we've got it. We should have it there later this evening. You can go to our Facebook page, and it's on there right now. Send us a message if you're not able to locate it, and we'll send it to you. We also have a pamphlet, a tract that explains the pagan origins of Halloween and how you can equip yourself to answer to people that insist it's a harmless child's activity. And we know better, being believers. And so this is also free to you. You can download this from our Facebook page and soon our website a little later on. Okay, also one more announcement. We have a showing this Saturday evening at 5 o'clock if you are in the Belvedere, Illinois area. We are showing Harry Potter Witchcraft Repackaged. And I know a lot of kids are into Harry Potter, and a lot of parents don't realize how bad it is and what's all behind it. So this is an eye-opener, and it explains why Harry Potter is not a good thing to have your children exposed to. So again, that'll be this Saturday, October 28th at 5 p.m. And it's going to be at Neve Shalom at 521 South State Street in Belvedere, Illinois. Okay, so I'm going to go back to, here we are. Okay, so let's start with a word of prayer. Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King, Lord, we thank you for your word and your truth, and especially your living word, which is Messiah Yeshua, our Savior, our Master, our Teacher, and our friend. And we thank you, and we invite you here to be here among us, to be part of our conversation, and to be present, and to bless this gathering as we delve into your word. We thank you, Lord, for your word, which is powerful, and it is strength to our body and strength to our spirit and to our bones. And we thank you. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen. Amen. Okay, so all that housekeeping's out of the way. So the parasha for today is called Lechah, and that parsha, let's see, I'm navigating my, there we go. It begins at Genesis 12, verse 1. And so we're going to go around the room and read through as far as we can get. We're going to interject commentary as it is quickened to us. Okay, and I'll begin. And Yahweh said to Avram, "Go yourself out of your land, from your relatives and from your father's house, to a land which I show you. And I shall make you a great nation, bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. And I shall bless those who bless you, and curse him who curses you. And in you all the clans of the earth shall be blessed. So Avram left as Yahweh had commanded him, and Lot went with him. And Avram was 75 years old, and he set out from Haran. And Avram took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their possessions that they had gathered, and the beings whom they had acquired in Haran, and they set out for the land of Canaan. And they came to the land of Canaan. Okay, so here, one of my favorite scriptures, Genesis 12:3. And I shall bless those who bless you, and curse him who curses you, and in you all the clans of the earth shall be blessed. And that's a promise. That's a promise from the Most High that the people of Israel and the land of Israel is loved by him, and they are the apple of his eye, and that he will bless those who bless them in light of what's going on around the world with the rise of anti-Semitism. We should be praying that more and more people would see this truth and take it to heart and change their hard hearts that are against Israel, change their hearts so that they would be for Israel, they would bless Israel, and then they would also be blessed. And it says, he will curse him who curses Israel. And in the past, he has done great things for Israel, but he's also come against those who have come against Israel. And many of those peoples are no longer with us. Okay, so we're going to, next reader, start at 6 and go through the end of 12.
Abram traveled through the land as far as the site of the great tree of Moreh at Shechem. At that time, the Canaanites were in the land. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offsprings I will give this land." So he built an altar there to the Lord, who had appeared to him. From there he went on towards the hills east of Bethel and pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Lord and called on the name of the Lord. Then Abram set out and continued towards the Negev. Now there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt to live there for a while because the famine was severe. As he was about to enter Egypt, he said to his wife Sarai, "I know that what a beautiful woman you are. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, 'This is his wife.' Then they will kill me, but will let you live."
Okay, so here's a situation. There's famine in the land, and they're going south. And let's see. And in verse 7, basically Yahweh gives him the deed to the land. And it's I guess some people would call it a handshake agreement. But he speaks this, to your seed I give this land. So that he did. I know there's dispute about the land, but we see here that it belongs to Israel. Okay, and next reader from 13 to the end of the chapter.
Please say that you are my sister, so that it will go well with me for your sake, and so that I will stay alive because of you. When Avram entered Egypt, the Egyptians did notice that the woman was very beautiful. Pharaoh's princes saw her and commended her to Pharaoh. So the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. He treated Avram well for her sake, giving him sheep, cattle, male and female donkeys, male and female slaves, and camels.
Is that what you've got to the end of your chapter?
No, they kept on with a couple more verses.
Oh, okay.
But Adonai inflicted great plagues on Pharaoh and his household because of Sarai, Avram's wife. Pharaoh called Avram and said, "What is this that you have done to me? Why didn't you tell me that she was your wife? Why did you say, 'She is my sister,' so that I took her to be my own wife? Now therefore, here is your wife. Take her and go away." So Pharaoh gave orders concerning him to his men, and they sent him on his way with his wife and everything he had.
Okay, so Avram was scared of what would become of him. So we know one thing that Sarai was gorgeous, as they say, and so it does say that Pharaoh took her to be his wife, but nowhere does it say that she actually became his wife. Um, so that was kind of a rescue. All right. Let's go on to the any comments on that at all?
I don't have any.
Okay. All right. Let's go to Genesis 13. And Avram went up from Mitzrayim into the south, he and his wife and all that he had, and Lot with him. And Avram was very rich in livestock, in silver and in gold. And he went on his journey from the south as far as Beit El, to the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Beit El and Ai, to the place of the altar which he had made there at first. And there Avram called on the name of Yahweh. Okay, and next reader starting at 5. Go to the end of 9.
Now Lot, who was moving about with Abram, also had flocks and herds and tents. But the land could not support them while they stayed together, for their possessions were so great that they were not able to stay together. And quarreling arose between Abram's herdsmen and the herdsmen of Lot. The Canaanites and the Perizzites were also living in the land at that time. So Abram said to Lot, "Let's not have any quarreling between you and me, or between your herdsmen and mine, for we are brothers. Is not the whole land before us? Let us part company. If you go to the left, I'll go to the right. If you go to the right, I'll go to the left."
So Avram was very trusting that Lot would be fair to him. Okay, so the plot thickens. If you would read from 10 to the end of 14. Oh no, I'm sorry, to 15.
Lot looked up and saw that the whole plain of the Yarden was well watered everywhere before Adonai destroyed Sodom and Amorah. Like the garden of Adonai, like the land of Egypt in the direction of Zoar. So Lot chose all the plain of the Yarden for himself, and Lot traveled eastward. Thus they separated themselves from each other. Avram lived in the land of Canaan, and Lot lived in the cities of the plain, setting up his tent near Sodom. Now the men of Sodom were evil, committing great sins against Adonai.
Okay, what we know the story of Sodom. What do you suppose those sins were?
Probably some in sexual nature.
Mm-hmm.
Abominations to the Lord.
Yeah, abominations to the Lord. So, if it got as bad as that, we know that other sins will probably going with.
Probably no limit.
Yeah, probably no limit at all. Okay, okay. I'll go ahead and take it from here. And after Lot had separated from him, Yahweh said to Avram, "Now lift up your eyes and look from the place where you are, northward and southward, and eastward and westward. For all the land which you see I shall give to you and your seed forever. And I shall make your seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man could count the dust of the earth, then your seed also could be counted. Arise, walk in the land through its length and its width, for I give it to you." So Avram moved his tent and went and dwelt by the terebinth trees of Mamre, which are in Hebron, and built an altar there to Yahweh. Okay, so again, Yahweh says, "I'm giving all this land to you." He doesn't say there's going to be another group that's going to reside there. I mean, the people that live there can welcome whoever they want to live there, but they're still going to be the stewards of that land.
The other people are just the guest.
Right.
Not the owners.
Right, exactly. So they don't really have rights to the land, but they're blessed. So long as they continue to bless the owners, they're going to be blessed by being allowed to live in such a fruitful land. Okay, so let's go to chapter 14, and we'll pick up there. If you would read from 1 to the end of 6.
At this time, Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elazar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goim, went to war against Bera, king of Sodom, Birsha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, Shimmeber, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zorah. All these later kings joined forces in the valley of Sidon, the Salt Sea. For 12 years they had been subject to Chedorlaomer, but in the 13th year they rebelled. In the 14th year, Chedorlaomer, the king allied with him, went out and defeated the Rephaites and Ashtoreth, Kiraneum, the Zuzites in Ham, and Emites in Shaveh, Kirathaim, and the Horites in the hill country of Seir, as far as El Paran near the desert.
Wow, I really
Thank
gave
you.
I was just thinking, oh no, she got all these names that she had to go through. Yeah, that's sorry. Okay, so I'm looking at the valley of Siddim, and it's located at the southern end of the Dead Sea. So you've got the Dead Sea, which is very, very salty, so salty that no fish could live in there. And the valley of Siddim is just south of there, so you kind of wonder where they got their water. And it's some say that it was at the northern end of the Dead Sea. Okay, so some say it wasn't there, that it's at the northern end in the vicinity of Jericho. But that's according to different references that they had found in Genesis 13, describing the parting of Lot and Avram, and the account, and also in the account of Moshe's vision from Pisgah and Deuteronomy. Okay, I'm going to go back to that reading. Okay, so Craig, if you would start at 7 and go to the end of 12.
Next they turned back, came to Ein Mishpat, which is the name as Kadesh, same as Kadesh,
Mhm.
and defeated all the country of the Amalekite and also the Amorite, who lived in the Hatzat zone, Tamar. Then the kings of Sodom, Amara, Admah, Zvoim, and Bela, that is Zoar, came out and arrayed themselves for battle in the Siddim Valley against Kedorlaomer, king of Elam, Tidal, king of Goyim, Amraphel, king of Admah, and Ar-
Aryok?
Aryok, king of Elazar, 4 kings against the 5.
Oh, okay. Now, did you say the Amraphel, the king of
Admah.
Admah? Okay, so I've got it in my version. It says the king of Shinar, but it's probably a different name for the same town, same city. Okay, and you ended there, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Next verse is 10.
Okay. And the valley of Siddim had many tar pits. Oh, before we start, I just wanted to. Okay, so they're getting ready for war. So we know in what we've read so far that Avram is a rich guy. He's got a lot of stuff. And he's going to wind up going to war as well. So he's also a warrior. And he had flocks of sheep and goats. So of course he's most probably has been pitted against, humans and animals trying to take off with his flocks. So he's not a milquetoast guy, he's probably a pretty macho dude.
Now,
So
wasn't it just kind of custom for the kings to go to war in the springtime or something?
yeah.
So is that like football season or something?
Yeah. Right.
I mean, was there a purpose for it or?
Probably. Well, let's see. The spring. Okay, so before ancient peoples would go to war, they'd give their sacrifices so they would have success in their battles. So what do they usually sacrifice? The lambs. And they're the ones that are generally
Born in
the spring. So many are. I mean, a lamb could be born at any time, really, but many are born in the spring.
I mean, were they trying to take territory against each other, or were they just trying to?
Territory, riches,
So boundaries had to be changing all the time.
Oh, all the time, yeah. Yeah, yeah. So, and who wants to fight a war when it's snowing? Because it does snow.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be fighting a war when it's really, really hot or when it's really, really cold. So spring just seems like the natural time to do that. Because in the fall, what's everybody trying to do? They're trying to harvest their, the grain that they've planted or their.
It's funny how this group comes together and that group comes together, and I mean, it just, the purpose of it is just,
Yeah. I imagine a lot of it is along family groups, I don't know. That's another question for the dinner table. Yes.
There's something interesting from a geographic point of view that's striking me about what we've read so far in this parashah. Abram is given land by Yahweh, and that land uh, uh, ends up being uh, next to the Mediterranean Sea.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you've got the Mediterranean Sea, and as you go west, the elevation goes up. I'm not sure what the elevation is to the uh, Jordan River.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the Dead Sea, the Jordan River connecting the Sea of Galilee. And so, right on the north side of the Dead Sea, where the Jordan River, they also call it the Yarden,
Mm-hmm.
is where this last verses take place.
Mm-hmm.
But we also see that Avram had gone all the way south and all the way around the southern Mediterranean Sea to Egypt.
Right.
That guy got around.
So part of
I'm-
the northern part of the Arabian Peninsula.
Yes.
In there. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's mostly desert. You know, if you look on a topological map,
Topographical.
the green kind of stops
Yeah.
at the when the Mediterranean Sea starts to turn back west
Mm-hmm.
towards Egypt. It starts to become desert again,
Right.
and so it was just I just like following the geography as Scripture goes along here,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
With
as
all
the
that
people.
desert, what were they fighting over?
I know.
It was
Yeah.
like, why do we have to go to war again this year?
It doesn't get green again until you get to the delta of the Nile.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, but I think because of the elevation is where we get the seasons. It gets cold there
Mm-hmm.
as you go up to Jerusalem.
Right.
That's pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
The area between Mediterranean and Jerusalem is called the Sphela, and it
Oh yeah,
goes
Shvela. Yeah.
up to Jerusalem. So you
Mm-hmm.
had to, when you wanted to make Aliyah, you had to have your energy about you.
Right.
It was an uphill climb.
Yeah.
So kind of like this country, there was a lot of variation in weather in there,
Yeah. Mhm.
depending on what part of the country you were in.
Right.
So you could be close to the Mediterranean and warmer, and then 50 miles away up a little higher, and you could be in a
Yes,
more winter
indeed.
type.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, being from California, I remember in the in the fall and early fall sometimes where the weather would be really nice, but then you look over at the mountains and there's snow on the mountains.
2 or 3 hours away, you could go skiing.
Right. Right.
Swim in the morning, ski in the afternoon.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
You're going to get your water one way or another. Okay, so you ended at 9,
Mhm.
Craig?
I'm trying to remember.
Yeah,
You're challenging me
I
now.
am.
yeah, you just got through all those kings.
Okay,
Okay.
right. Okay. So Avram, he's pretty wealthy. He's got all the flocks and everything, and he's also a man of war. Okay, starting at verse 10. And the valley of Siddim had many tar pits, and the sovereigns of Sodom and Amorah, Sodom and Gomorrah, fled and fell there, and the remainder fled to the mountains. And they took all the goods of Sodom and Amorah, and all their food, and went away. And they took Lot, Avram's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and left. So they kidnapped him. And one who had escaped came and informed Avram the Hebrew, for he dwelt by the terebinth trees of Mamre the Amorite, brother of Eshcol and brother of Aner. And they had a covenant with Avram. Now, last Shabbat we talked about covenants, and it's an agreement, a treaty. Okay. And when Avram heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his 318 trained servants who were born in his own house and went in pursuit as far as Dan. Okay, so there again, he's got some money. He's got 318 trained servants that were born in his own house. And so he's ready to make war. Okay. All right. And starting at 15, if you would go to the end of 20.
During the night, Abram divided his men to attack them, and he routed them, pursuing them as far as Hobah, north of Damascus. He recovered all the goods and brought back his relative Lot and his possessions, together with the women and the other people. After Abram returned from defeating Chedorlaomer and the kings allied with him, the king of Sodom came out to meet him in the valley of Shaveh, that is the king's valley. Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was priest of God Most High, and he blessed Abram, saying, Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and blessed be God Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hand. Then Abram gave him a tenth of everything.
Okay. So here we see Melchizedek. Okay. The first time Melchizedek is mentioned in Scripture. And we know that the name Melchizedek is made of two words. Melech, which means king, and Tzedek, which means righteous. So in the way that they would name children, they would use a name that they would hope that their child would embody, the character would embody. So obviously Melchizedek was named this for a reason, to be king. He was the king of Shalem, which would soon be Yerushalayim, Jerusalem. And he brought out bread and wine, and this is part of a covenant ceremony, covenantal ceremony. He's also the priest of, it says, the Most High El, the Most High God, and so he's not only king of that area, he's a representative of the God that gave Avram all that land and gave him favor. And so he blessed Avram. And of course, then he blessed Yahweh. Okay.
So
mhm.
Melchizedek and Jesus are the only two who are both king and priest.
Mhm.
You couldn't, and nobody else could be both.
Right.
You had to be one or the other.
Right.
So these are the only two that
Right.
could be.
And I'm just kind of wondering, historically, was there a Melchizedek? Or could this have been a arrival of Yeshua? In the original covenant, the first half of the book, you see many times where these types and shadows of Messiah are seen. Like when Jacob takes off and he's met by this man and he wrestles with this man who turns out to be an angel, and actually it's Malach, which is messenger, and of course Yeshua was also a Malach, not that he was an angel, but he was a messenger. Everything that Yah wanted us to know, he spoke. He gave us the message of Yah. So
Because Melchizedek isn't mentioned anywhere before this
Right.
with any of the other kings. He
Right.
just all of a sudden he's there.
Right.
And so
And it said that he did not have a mother or a father.
Mhm.
So that's another thing that makes me
So
think.
he was just kind of like a manifestation of I mean, because who else could bless Abraham like that?
Right, right. I mean, he had the authority of a king of Shalem, which means
Right.
peace.
And where was that? There was no city called Peace
Yeah,
in that area. The
yeah,
only city of peace would have been in heaven.
yeah. So I think that's, Avram meets up with a lot of messengers that give him all these blessings, and good news. And of course, we'll read later on how these messengers again come to him. Okay, let's see. Where were we?
We're at 21.
21. Okay, so he blessed him, he blessed Yahweh, and going on in 21. Okay, to the end of the chapter.
My turn.
Oh, your turn? Oh, your turn. Okay, go ahead.
The king of Sodom said to Avram, "Give me the people, and keep the goods for yourself." But Avram answered the king of Sodom, "I have raised my hand in an oath to Adonai, Elyon, maker of heaven and earth, that I will not take so much as a thread or a sandal thong of anything that is yours, so that you won't be able to say, 'I made Avram rich.' I will take only what my troops have eaten and the share of the spoil belonging to the men who came with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre. Let them have their share."
Okay, so and in a way, he's being loyal to Yahweh because he knows where his bread is buttered. Yahweh has blessed him. Yahweh has protected him. Has protected his wife, and provided for him. I mean, he went all the way down with his wife and his people down to Egypt. That's a long way to walk,
Mhm.
and you know, Yah has been with him, so he's gotten all this favor. So who is he to allow a man to say, "Well, I made you," you know? So,
At the end of 20,
mm-hmm,
it says, then Abram gave him Melchizedek
mm-hmm.
a tenth of everything.
Okay, so
But
there's
it
a
doesn't say
tithe.
that Lot gave him an offering.
Oh, whoops.
You'd think
Yeah, yeah.
of the two,
Mm-hmm.
Lot would be more thankful because he was rescued.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
there's no mention of him giving an offering of thanks or anything.
I'm wondering if when he was taken, if his possessions were also taken and he didn't have any.
Well, it says that when Abram defeated him, that he got back the women and the people and all the possessions. It
Okay.
says in 16, he recovered all the goods
Mm-hmm.
and brought back his relative
I
Lot
see.
and his possessions together with the women and the other people. So
It was recovered.
he should have
Mm-hmm.
been thankful.
Yeah.
And it doesn't say anything about him showing any kind of thanks or anything.
Well, later on we do see what kind of character
Yeah.
he had. So, okay. All right, so let's go on to chapter 15. All right. And okay, after these events, the word of Yahweh came to Avram in a vision, saying, "Do not be afraid, Avram. I am your shield. Your reward is exceedingly great." So he was his magen, his shield. And Avram said, "Master Yahweh, what would you give me, seeing I go childless? And the heir of my house is Eliezer of Damascus." And Avram said, "See, you have given me no seed, and see, one born in my house is my heir. And see, the word of Yahweh came to him, saying, This one is not your heir, but he who comes from your own body is your heir." Okay, so it's been established. He has no children, and let's see, how old was he at this time? He was going to be
More than 75.
yeah. So, um, so they kind of got him and Sarai were past their childbearing years. Well, he could probably have children, but she wouldn't. She wouldn't be able to naturally. Okay. Uh, and see, the word of Yahweh came to him, saying, "This one is not your heir, but he who comes from your own body is your heir." And he brought him outside and said, "Look now toward the heavens, and count the stars, if you are able to count them." And he said to him, "So are your seed." And he believed in Yahweh, and Yahweh reckoned it to him for righteousness. Okay, so we have a promise. Okay, next reader, let's go from 7 to the end of 13. Yeah, end of 13.
He also said to him, I am the Lord who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land to take possession of it. But Abram said, O sovereign Lord, how can I know that I will gain possession of it? So the Lord said to him, Bring me a heifer, a goat, and a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon. Abram brought all these to him, cut them in two, and arranged the halves opposite each other. The birds, however, he did not cut in half. Then birds of prey came down on the carcasses, but Abram drove them away. As the sun was setting, Abram fell into a deep sleep, and a thick and dreadful darkness came over him. Then the Lord said to him, Know for certain that your descendants will be strangers in a land not their own, and they will be enslaved and mistreated for 400 years. But I will punish the nation. Oh, okay.
Okay, so here he's basically, we know when that's going to be. That's going to be generations later, and it does come to pass. In verse 9, Yahweh is making a covenant with Abraham when he says, "Bring me a 3-year-old heifer and a 3-year-old female goat and a 3-year-old ram and a turtle dove and a young pigeon." He took all these to him and then cut them in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then place each half opposite the other. But he didn't cut the birds. And so this was part of the covenant. It doesn't go too deep into the actual ceremony, but we know the fact that they were cut in half, and it doesn't say that they were consumed with fire. So this was something that, boy, this was a lot of work for Abraham to cut them in half. He probably had help. Okay, and then it says he came to be the sun going down. A deep sleep fell upon Avram, and a great frightening darkness fell upon him. Okay, so he's telling him in this dream, know for certain that your seed are to be sojourners in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them. And we know that to be Egypt. And actually, it could be Babylon too. So, okay. Craig, 14 to the end of the chapter.
But I will also judge that nation, the one that makes them slaves. Afterwards, they will leave with you many possessions. As for you, you will join your ancestors in peace and be buried at a good old age. Only in the 4th generation will your descendants come back here, because only then will the Amorite be ripe for your punishment. Not your punishment, ripe for punishment.
Mm-hmm.
Abraham, Isaac,
Mm-hmm.
Jacob, and Benjamin.
And Jacob, okay.
Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and then Jacob's son
Joseph.
coming back, Joseph,
Mm-hmm.
and then Benjamin would be the fourth.
Yeah, Benjamin was the youngest. It's not
coming back from Egypt.
Well, no, Benjamin was born back where in Canaan, yeah.
Okay, but at that time they
Mm-hmm.
had already this whole story of Pharaoh and Egypt, where Joseph went to Egypt,
Mm-hmm.
and now they're on their way back to the area where the Amorite are at now, but it's been 4 generations. That's why I was just trying to see if you agreed with my counting of the generations.
Yeah, there could have been a generation between the eldest of Jacob's sons and the youngest.
I think it's talking about the 4th generation after they go into slavery. Because
Okay.
it says in further up before it says they'll be mistreated for 400 years.
Yeah. Oh, that's more than
Yeah.
several
so
generations.
That would be like 100 years per generation. So the 4th generation, that's when they're going to come back.
Mm-hmm.
So that's after 400 years. So the generation count would start after they get into Egypt.
Right.
So it would be the descendants of Benjamin and Joseph and all of that.
Okay.
Yeah, 100 years is pretty long for a generation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'll continue to the end of the chapter, starting at
Yeah.
17.
Yep.
After the sun had set, and there was thick darkness, a smoking fire pot and a flaming torch appeared, which passed between these animal parts. That day Adonai made a covenant with Avram. I have given this land to your descendants, from the Vadi of Egypt to the great river of the Euphrates River, the territory of the Kenai, the
Kenizi.
K people, the other K people,
Kenizi and the Kadmoni.
the Hittite,
Hitti
the
and
P
Perizzi.
people, the Raphaim, the Emori, the Kanani, and the Girgashi, and the Yevusi. I don't know if I can go to Israel or not.
They may not let you in if you can't pronounce all those names.
I've really butchered them.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
That's the end of the chapter.
Okay. So here is, he sees, and see, it came to be when the sun went down and it was dark that he sees this, here it says smoking oven. So it was a flame pot, right? Or a fire pot. And a burning torch passing between the pieces. So that was kind of supernatural. And I don't think that wasn't Avram doing that. That was Yahweh doing that.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a one-way covenant because God is the one that passed through the pieces. Abraham didn't. So this is God's promise
To him.
to Abraham, and it's kind of unconditional because it's a one-sided covenant.
Yeah. Yeah. So no matter what Avram does, Avram kind of represents us. I mean, he's the father of all these nations. And, we've messed up time and time again. And yet, Yahweh shows his favor and his mercy and provision. So yeah, it is pretty much a one-sided covenant. He made the promise. Um, and now that I think of it, the ketubah, the marriage contract, in Jewish weddings, um, it's the man who agrees to all these things. Nowhere does it say anything that the woman has to do anything. He is the one that bears all the responsibility for the relationship. So that kind of illustrates how it is with our Creator and us. We're the bride, so long as we are in agreement and we, come under His protection, He's going to do all these things for us. So that's very generous. Okay, chapter 16. All right. And Sarai, Avram's wife, had borne him no child, and she had a Mitzrite female servant, whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said to Avram, "See, Yahweh has kept me from bearing children. Please go in to my female servant. It might be that I am built up by her." And Avram listened to the voice of Sarai. Rotro. And Sarai, Avram's wife, took Hagar, her female servant, the Mitzrite, and gave her to her husband Avram to be his wife, after Avram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan. And he went in to Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. So, this always made me wonder, well, why is she despising Sarai? Well, she wouldn't be in that condition if Sarai hadn't kind of committed her, to play her part there.
Well, Sarai was still the number one wife, which had all the privileges.
Right.
And so here Hagar's gonna bear a son or a baby, and she's still considered second class,
Right.
kind of. So I could see where, well, here I am going to give you your heir,
Right.
but I'm the second class, and I'm not treated as well as she is.
Yeah.
So I can see the jealousy there.
There's in the Middle East, or at least in the ancient Middle East, in some very, very obscure parts of the Middle East, if it's a case where a woman is unable to bear a child, she will sit in a birthing chair. Basically it's almost like, you remember back in the day when we had the little potties? Yeah. And basically it was a chair with a hole cut in it. And so the wife would sit on the chair like she was giving birth, and the woman who was actually pregnant would sit on the lap of the wife and give birth, so it would symbolically pass through, and so that first child would belong to the first wife. Yeah. So Hagar doesn't she doesn't have a whole lot of status in that relationship. She's still a servant woman. She's a slave. She's not free. And yet here's Sarai going to
she has to be taken care of, but she has no rights.
Right, exactly. Okay. All right. And Sarai said to Avram, "My wrong be upon you." So Sarai is telling her husband this. "My wrong be upon you. I gave my female servant into your bosom, and when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. Let Yahweh judge between you and me." So she takes responsibility for forcing the issue. Okay, next reader, 6 to the end of 10.
"Your servant is in your hands," Abram said. "Do with her whatever you think is best." Then Sarai mistreated Hagar, so she fled from her. The angel of the Lord found Hagar near a spring in the desert. It was the spring that is beside the road of Shur. And he said, Hagar, servant of Sarai, where have you come from, and where are you going? I'm running away from my mistress Sarai, she answered. Then the angel of the Lord told her, Go back to your mistress and submit to her. The angel added, I will so increase your descendants that they will be too numerous to count.
Okay, and as we know, the child of Abraham and Hagar is Ishmael, who is the father of the Arab peoples. Okay, and Craig, if you would pick that up and go to the end of the chapter.
Are we at 11?
Yes.
The angel of Adonai said to her, Look, you are pregnant, and you will give birth to a son. You are to call him Ishmael. God pays attention, because Adonai has paid attention to your misery. He will be a wild donkey of a man, with his hand against everyone, and everyone's hand against him, living his life at odds with all his kinsmen. So she named Adonai, who had spoken with her, El Roi, God of seeing, because she said, I have really seen the one who sees me and stayed alive. This is why the well has been called Ber Lachai Roi, well of the one who lives and sees. It lies between Kadesh and Bered. Hagar bore Avram a son, and Avram called the son whom Hagar had borne Ishmael. Avram was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael to Avram.
Okay, so here again, Yahweh says there's going to be a problem with the descendants of Ishmael and the descendants of a future child from Sarai's body.
Not only that, he says he's going to live in hostility towards all his brothers.
Yeah.
And they all fight each other.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, even now the Sunnis and the Shiites and yeah.
Occasionally they come together and ally against a common enemy.
Yeah.
But they're always fighting each other.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and we see that, it's all in the news headlines now. So he's going to be a wild man. His hand is against everyone and everyone's hand against him. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we see the kind of violence that comes from, them, and not all of them. I mean, I once had a friend, a Muslim friend, and we got along very well. So it isn't, all Arabs, all Muslims. Yeah, she was Egyptian, actually, so. But there's that, group that goes beyond, their violence is, well, it's horrible.
Well, it's like us being judged by what our nation is doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Just because our leaders
Mm-hmm.
are doing things doesn't mean that we as a people agree with it and go along with it.
Right.
And that's the way it is in those countries too.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody agrees with their leaders.
Right. I mean, in our country, we passed, same-sex marriage. We passed, killing the child in the womb, the sin of abortion. But we didn't agree to that, there's still those who are righteous, within a people group. But everybody sees the worst if they want to see the worst. Yeah.
I would like to disagree with you a little bit.
About?
The fact that you can, just because you claim to still be with the Lord, you'll be excused from punishment.
I never said that.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
Oh.
Like my dad used to say, listen.
Who said
Okay.
that?
No, we won't escape punishment. No, but we judgment, like how people judge this country, how other people judge this country. Oh, well, America, they've got this going on and that going on, because they see our leaders and they see the things that are done that are, not real good. And so the whole country is judged that way by others. But, there are those of us who don't agree with that. So, okay. And so let's go to the next chapter. And this is the final chapter. Let's see. So it's going to go to, to the end of that chapter. All right. Let's see. Who was the last to read?
Me.
You. Okay, my turn. All right. And it came to be when Avram was 99 years old that Yahweh appeared to Avram and said to him, I am El Shaddai. Walk before me and be perfect. Now, El Shaddai means the, El, of course, means God. But Shaddai is all sufficient. So El Shaddai is the all sufficient God. Now, some equate Shaddai comes from the word shad, which means breast. And so, of course, to a baby, the mother is the one who meets all the baby's needs. And so it's like our God, El Shaddai, some people refer to him as the many-breasted one. And I know that sounds really weird, and there are actually idols that are made up to look like that, but that's a counterfeit. It's about his character. He provides for us in a myriad of ways. That's why he's called the many-breasted one. He's all-sufficient. Anything we need, he can provide. He provides our food, our where we live, our clothing, our where we are in a community, our status in a community, because he places leaders where he wants them to be, and many, many other things. So he says, he's telling Avram, he says, I am El Shaddai. He's basically saying, I can provide everything that you could possibly imagine and more. So here, the addition to that statement is, then he says, walk before me and be perfect. In other words, be righteous, be upstanding. And then he goes on to say, and I give my covenant between me and you, and shall greatly increase you. And Avram fell on his face, and Elohim spoke with him, saying, as for me, look, my covenant is with you, and you shall become a father of many nations. And no longer is your name called Avram, which means exalted father, but your name shall be Avraham, because I shall make you a father of many nations. And that's exactly what Avraham means. And I shall make you bear fruit exceedingly, and make nations of you, and sovereigns shall come from you. And he's got more. And he's got more. Okay. And I shall establish my covenant between me and you and your seed after you in their generations. So it's a forever thing. For an everlasting covenant. So he doesn't take back what he promises. This is an everlasting covenant. To be Elohim to you, to be your God, and your seed after you. So he promises not only to be the God of Abraham, but the God of all the generations that will come. And then he goes on and he says, and I shall give to you and to your seed after you the land of your sojournings, the land of your wanderings, all the land of Canaan as an everlasting possession, and I shall be their Elohim. So this is big. He not only says he's going to provide for all his needs and the needs of future generations after him. He's going to create those generations. He's going to add to him all these many descendants. And, where are you going to put all these people? He provides a land for all of them to dwell, to possess. And he says, and I will be their Elohim, their God. Okay, from 9 to, let's see, 16.
Then God said to Abraham, as for you, you must keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you, for the generations to come. This is my covenant with you and your descendants after you, the covenant you are to keep. Every male young among you shall be circumcised. You are to undergo circumcision, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and you. For the generations to come, every male among you who is 8 days old must be circumcised, including those born in your household or bought with money from a foreigner. Those who are not your offspring, those are money from a foreigner who are not your offspring, whether born in your household or bought with your money, they must be circumcised. My covenant in your flesh is to be an everlasting covenant. Any circumcised male who has not been circumcised in the flesh will be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. God also said to Abraham, as for Sarai, your wife, you are no longer to call her Sarai. Her name is to be Sarah. I will bless her and will surely give you a son by her. I will bless her so that she will be the mother of nations. Kings of people will come from her.
Okay, so he goes on with the covenant, and now he's saying, now we're going to make a covenant that's visible, and this is the covenant of circumcision, which is called Brit Milah. Brit meaning covenant, and Milah, of course, is the cutting of the foreskin. And this is a sign, you can kind of tell. Not that I've been in a men's locker room, but the guys in the men's locker room know who is and who isn't circumcised. Nowadays, they do it automatically, unless you say don't, in the hospital. Or they'll ask you, do you want, you just had a baby boy, do you want him circumcised?
I just heard something interesting,
Mhm.
that Barbara O'Neill was talking, and she said there is a reason why God said to wait eight
Mhm.
days,
Yep,
because the baby doesn't have the ability for the blood to clot until
right.
it's 8 days old,
Yeah,
and that's why they have to give them injections when they do the circumcision right away in the hospitals
right,
on that.
right. Yep. I think it's like vitamin K. It's vitamin K is another thing. But yeah, that's exactly right. And who but Yahweh would know that? He created the child,
And they don't tell you that when they ask you if you want them circumcised. They don't say, "Oh, well, we're going to have to give them a shot because they can't clot the blood and all that." They never
Right,
tell you that stuff.
right, right. I know when my boys were born, I made sure that, don't circumcise them. We're going to do this,
The
because of
right
our,
way.
yeah, the right way. And so I made Craig follow David. He was not supposed to have any kind of injections of anything like that. That kid has gone through, most of his life with, you know, no,
He never needle never touched his body till he went in the army.
yep. Yep. And he's the healthiest kid.
Yeah, he never got sick.
Yeah. Yeah, it was amazing. But that's, I mean, that's Yah's favor. But yeah, you know, absolutely right. Yahweh knew that that was the exact time for a male child to be circumcised. Okay, and so this was a visible reminder. Certainly, you know, every male would be reminded, you know, several times a day, you know, that they have this sign in their flesh. And it's not only for the descendants of Abraham, but it says he was born in your house. So it could be a servant, a slave, um, and they're to also be circumcised. Otherwise, they are not, you know, they've broken the covenant. They're not part of the people. And that's why it was so important. Somebody, oh, I think it was Dory, who said, you know, something about Yeshua's dedication in the temple. And so this was after the time of the purification, which, you know, lasted so many days. But when he was dedicated, you know, this would have been, you know, his naming ceremony or his circumcision. That's when the name of the child, you know, the name was given. He had to be part of the covenant, a son of the covenant, in order to represent his people when he became the perfect sacrifice. So, okay, so let's see. Oh, were you going to say something else? Or?
No.
Oh, okay, I thought you were about to say something. Okay, let's see.
17.
17, all right. Okay, let's see, 17, go to the end of 21.
I think it's my turn.
Yes.
At this, Abraham fell on his face and laughed. He thought of himself, will a child be born to a man 100 years old? Will Sarah give birth at 90? Abraham said to God, if only Ishmael could live in your presence. God answered, no, but Sarah your wife will bear you a son, and you are to call him Yitzhak, which means laughter. I established my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his descendants after him. But as for Ishmael, I have heard you. I have blessed him. I will make him fruitful and give him many descendants. He will father 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. But I will establish my covenant with Yitzhak, whom Sarah will bear to you at this time next year.
Okay, so here we've got two sons. The older one, which is Ishmael, will serve the younger one, which is Yitzhak. And we're going to see that pattern as we read through the Tanakh, or the Torah. And we see that the difference is, you know, here, okay, so Abraham says, oh, let Ishmael live before you. In other words, he's saying, well, you know, let my firstborn be the one to, you know, to honor you and to live righteously before you and receive the blessing. And Elohim says, no, not because this was not the child of this of a free woman. This is a child of a bondswoman. Also, this was the child of a union that happened that wasn't supposed to happen. You know, they here Sarai at the time thought that she was doing Yahweh a favor, that she was helping out. You know,
Like you needed help.
right? Like he needed help, and so yeah. So this.
It's interesting. My translation
Mhm.
says, then God said, yes, but your wife Sarah will bear you a son, and you will call him Isaac.
Hmm. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Uh,
Well, we're going to have to go. I'm going to have to look this up in Torah and see what if it says lo or no or ken. Yes.
it says, and Abraham said to God, if only Ishmael might live under your blessing. Then
Mm,
God said, yes, but your wife Sarah will bear you a son, and you will call him Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his descendants after him.
okay.
And as for Ishmael, I have heard you, I will surely bless him,
Hmm.
and I will make. So, yeah, that's confusing.
Yeah. Well, he could have, I mean, he's still going to bless
Right, but he's not going
Ishmael.
to get that first
Right. He
blessing.
doesn't have the birthright.
Right,
Yeah. So, okay. All right.
but that could be deceiving the way that's
Yeah,
set up
I'll
like
have to
that.
look that one up. That's interesting. Okay, we're getting almost to the end here, starting at 22. And when he had ended speaking with him, Elohim went up from Avraham. So he went back to his heavenly throne. And Avraham took Yishmael his son, and all those born in his house, and all those bought with his silver, every male among the men of Avraham's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskins that same day, as Elohim told him. And Avraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And Ishmael, his son, was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. Avraham and his son Ishmael were circumcised that same day, and all the men of his house, born in the house or bought with silver from a foreigner, were circumcised with him. So nobody was doing anything that day.
Definitely a day of rest.
Yeah, that is definitely a day of rest, yes. And to this day, Muslims do not circumcise their sons on the eighth day. Um, Now, I think they wait until they're at least 8 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, and but there are other practices, bloodletting practices that they do that, I'm not going to get into it, but
They have no mercy.
yeah, well, it's imitation of the, pagans around them. I mean, when you think about it, the God that they serve, that they say, they think is the one true God, comes from an ancient pagan religion. And it was actually two gods, and they just kind of put them together, called that God Allah, and said, okay, this is the one God that we honor, but some things crept in. There's actually, well, I don't know if I should get into this, but I know there's actually, among the really serious Muslims, where they actually cut the head, like the skin right about here, and it's bloodletting on the young kids. They don't even tell the boys. They don't even tell them, but it's they don't tell them why, but it's really strange. So,
Well, and the same with like the female circumcision too.
oh yeah, that's right. They do that too. That's kind of creepy, and Yahweh never said do that. So, okay, so that is the end of the parsha, and we had a good discussion. And so I'm hoping you enjoyed that reading. And if you have any comments, please put it in the comment section underneath this video. And I hope you'll join us next week when we go and we're going to read the next parsha, and which will be, I think it's Sarah. No, Vayera. Vayera is the next one. And we're going to be meeting here again on next Wednesday night at 6:30 Central. And please, if you can, come join us for Shabbat service on Saturday afternoon at 1 p.m. And we'd love to see you in person, but if you can't, join us online. Until then, shalom, shalom.
Yeah.